guys for coming today. I appreciate it very much. You know, I think that part of employee development and employee well-being is being able to be safe in your workplace and being able to know that you can confide in leadership in order if there's something wrong to take care of an issue. And that's kind of how this came about. And actually, I was talking to Tiffany a few months ago, and I said, you know, I really feel like we need to have sexual harassment training. And she says, well, when can you do that? I'm like, well, it's not really what I was going for, but that'll be the last time I recommend something special. That's how I got this gig. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. I do feel like it's very important that we do this. I know a few years back, you guys remember where we used to do the training online. We did a little course online and take the test. And we may eventually start doing that again, but for today, this is what we'll do. This is actually a pretty short session. I know a couple people have asked, how long are we going to be in there? I told Tiffany, I said, kind of like a pizza. We'll have this in 30 minutes or less, or it'll be free. So. In all seriousness, we will get started. So our objectives today is we're going to learn the definition of sexual harassment, the different types of sexual harassment, be able to identify it if you see it taking place, and what the steps are to filing a complaint. So, a lot of times, you know, I'm a member of SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management, and I get cases that come through all the time, and I'll get definitions of things, and I'm like, well, what does that really mean? So, with that, we're going to break this down, but basically, the definition is unwelcome verbal, visual, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that is severe or pervasive and affects working conditions or creates a hostile work environment. And like I said, we're gonna break that down. What does that really mean? So, the word conduct is not sexual harassment if it is welcome. For that reason, it's important, either verbally or in writing, to communicate to a harasser that the conduct makes you uncomfortable and that you want it to stop. So if you feel like you are or have been a victim, you need to let that person know to stop. Or if you're a third party, you need to communicate that as well. Of the sexual nature. So verbal or written. Those can be comments about clothing, personal behavior, or a person's body, sexual or sex-based jokes, requesting sexual favors, repeatedly asking a person out, sexual innuendos, telling rumors about a person's personal life or sexual life, threatening a person, sending emails or text messages of a sexual nature. I know we all know that anything in writing can be subpoenaed, so I want to keep that in mind. Physical, obviously assault, impeding or blocking movement, inappropriate touching of a person's clothing, kissing, hugging, patting, stroking, any of that stuff. So, non-verbally would be looking up and down at the person's body, derogatory gestures or facial expressions of a sexual nature, following or stalking someone. Visual could be posters, drawings, pictures, screensavers, emails, or text, just like I mentioned earlier, to get that written. Of a non-sexual nature. So, non-sexual conduct may also be sexual harassment if you're harassed because you're a female rather than male, or male rather than female. And the example they use that is if you're a woman working as a carpenter with all male employees on all male jobs, and you're the only one whose tools are frequently hidden by your male coworkers, that could be a component of sexual harassment. Makes you kind of think. So what do they mean by severe or pervasive? So the conduct of the harasser must be severe or pervasive to be classified as sexual harassment. Although one single unwanted request for a day or one sexually suggestive comment might offend you or might offend someone and be inappropriate, it may not be really sexual harassment. However, a number of those comments or minor separate incidents may add up to sexual harassment if the incident affects your work environment, which we're going to get into detail. Now, here in just a little bit, we'll talk about the two different types of sexual harassment. There are actually two types. The quid pro quo, which is, I always say something for something. The PowerPoint refers to this for that. Or there's hostile work environments. So we'll break down the two of those here in just a minute. So some questions to ask yourself if you are in this type of incident. How many times did the incident occur? How long has that harassment been going on? How many others have been sexually harassed? And were there any witnesses to the harassment? So just like in the beginning when it said you need to let the harasser know that you want that conduct to stop, that it makes you uncomfortable, that would be something that you'd want to go ahead and document. So what do they mean by affects working conditions or creates a hostile work environment? So maybe sexual harassment is the conduct unreasonably interferes with your work performance or creates intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. And the example they use here is if repeated sexual comments make you so uncomfortable at work that your performance suffers or you decline professional opportunities because it will put you in contact with the harasser. So, no, I don't want to go do this professional development activity because Jane Doe or John Doe is going to be there and they've been harassing me, so I don't want to go. So this is what we talked about when I mentioned a little bit earlier, the two different types. And the quid pro quo, which is this for that, meaning a person in a position of authority, typically a supervisor, demands sexual favors as a condition to getting or keeping a job benefit. This is probably the one we hear about most often. It's the easiest to prove in court cases. The other one, which is hostile work environment, is verbal, physical, or visual forms of harassment that are sexual in nature, sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive, and unwelcome fall under this category of hostile environment. One single severe incident, such as sexual assault, could create a hostile environment. More commonly, a hostile environment is created a series of incidents, which we talked about that earlier. Some examples. Unwanted jokes, gestures, or offensive words, touching and any other bodily contact, such as grabbing an employee, interfering with someone's ability to move, stalking someone.
What if this is PowerPoint?
Yeah. I didn't take the pictures, okay? Request for dates. They are a little unique, aren't they? So some examples: transmitting or posting emails, pictures, displaying sexually suggestive objects, pictures, or music even. So what are the steps to file a complaint? Obviously we talked about earlier, let the harasser know that his or her conduct is unwanted and unwelcome, and then obviously anybody who knows of it, is witness of it, or has been exposed shall report those incidents to the superintendent or compliance officer, which is Tiffany. So, some questions and answers. So, is sexual harassment only men harassing women? What do you guys say? Good. That is true. No matter who's harassing who can be categorized as sexual harassment. Here's another one. The other day, a fellow employee told me a joke that had mild sexual content. I wasn't offended by it, and we both found that joke to be funny. Was that harassment? No. Welcome to my world, people. Maybe. While one joke alone may not be harassment, it could be part of a hostile environment. In that situation, you need to remember that the question is whether or not the employee who told the joke was offended, but would a reasonable person find it offensive. And so my thought process here is like, okay, if a customer came in and overheard that, you didn't know they heard it, would they find it offensive? Okay. Would you tell it to grandma? Oh, my grandma. Can one incident constitute sexual harassment?
Yes. Me. No way to harass me.
It depends. In that quid pro quo case, in something for something, one sexual advance may constitute harassment, probably would. In a hostile environment claim, those are usually a bit harder to prove, but they require showing that pattern. So sexual harassment if I ask a coworker for a tweet.
If it's the 100th time today.
Depending on your policy, it's best to follow that one strike and you're out. If you ask for a date and they tell you they're not interested, don't keep asking, don't stalk them. repeated requests may constitute harassment, while a single polite request probably will not. That was quick.
Yeah.
30 minutes or less. It's 3 people.
Okay.